So heroes are freaks. Heroes stick out when everyone else fits in. Heroes see strength where everyone else sees weakness. So I want to tell you one simple message today, and that's this: that what makes us weird is what makes us wonderful, and what makes us weak also makes us strong. I've always been weird. The first thing that people ask when they meet me is, how tall are you? The answer to that is I'm 6'6", but I'm 6'9" in heels. And one of the problems with growing up tall and growing up poor, I grew up in a trailer park in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, is you grow up faster than your family's ability to get you pants. So I always had high water pants, or floods we called them. The kids at school would tease me, but my mom didn't want me to feel bad. She told me they were capri pants and they were coming back in style. That turned out not to be true. I'm 6'6", my wife is 5'3". If you wonder how that works, just realize that in our relationship, deodorant is much more important than breath mints. So I was always different, but I wished I wasn't different, because we live in a world that says what makes us weird makes us awful, and what makes us weak also makes us wrong. I was always different, but I wished I was normal. I wished I could fit in. I wished I could be like everyone else. And I don't think I'm the only one. Robert Quinn says in his book, Deep Change, that deviance will always generate external pressures to conform. If you perform beyond the norms, the systems will adjust and try to make you normal. Heroism is positive deviance, and yet when you try to be unusual, when you try to be a hero, when you try to be positive, even when that creates difference, it creates external pressures to conform, and that's what I want to talk about today. Deviance will always generate external pressures to conform. If you perform beyond the norms, the systems will adjust and try to make you normal. And one of the reasons for that is because something psychologists call negativity bias. Negativity bias says we tend to see what's wrong instead of what's right in any given situation, even if what's wrong is really, really small and what's right is really, really big. So imagine I had a stain on my shirt. I'd spilled on myself this morning, and a big stain right in the middle of my shirt. What negativity bias says is that every person in this room would be staring at that stain and thinking negative things about me as a human being because I'm incapable of keeping myself clean. What it also says is no matter how positive and how encouraging you are, there's not a single person in this room who'd be looking at that stain and thinking to themselves, that Dave Rendall's doing a good job. Because 98% of that shirt is stain-free. Nice job, Dave, nice job. And yet that's the actual objective reality, but we miss what was right because we're so busy seeing what's wrong. And I want to show you how we can use that to our advantage today. When I was a kid, there was lots of things wrong with me, and that's all that people saw. And people never saw the things that were right with me. I was always in trouble at school for three things. I couldn't sit still, I couldn't be quiet, and I couldn't do what I was told. The teachers called me obnoxious, they called me rebellious, they called me immature, they called me inappropriate. They told me I had no self-control and no self-discipline. If I didn't fix those things, I was going to end up being a failure in life. I remember I was in third grade, so I was 8 years old, and the teachers kind of gave up on me. They sent me to the principal's office, and he sat me down on his lap, which seems questionable now looking back on it. And he told me, he said, Dave, there's three kinds of bad people in this world. There's bad people, there's really bad people, and there's people who are too far gone. And he told me, Dave, you're a really bad kid and you're on the verge of being too far gone. You need to learn to sit still, be quiet, and do what you're told, or you're never going to be able to be a successful person. You have to fix your weaknesses. You have to fix those things that make you unusual. Ken Robinson said many highly talented, brilliant, creative people think they're not because the thing they were good at school wasn't valued or was actually stigmatized. The thing they were good at, their strength, wasn't valued, it was denied or ignored, or it was actually stigmatized. They were told that the best thing about them was actually the worst thing about them. One of the things that Sylvia told you in the introduction is that I've now spoken on every inhabited continent. I've been to Australia to speak every year since 2005. This is my second time this year, and I'm already booked to come back again next year. I get paid to do three things. I get paid to travel around the world, to stand up, not to sit down, to talk, not to be quiet, and to do to run my own business, not to do what other people tell me to do. I discovered as an adult that the very things that people had defined as my weaknesses were also my strengths, and the very things that people had spent their whole life dedicated to keep me from doing were precisely the things I needed to do in order to be successful. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, that oftentimes we miss our strengths, we miss other people's strengths, we miss the potential that people have because we're busy seeing what's wrong with people instead of what's right. We're busy seeing weakness when we need to be seeing strength instead. And so this idea of strength and weakness, and every characteristic is a neutral characteristic with both positive and negative elements. So I'm tall, and it's good to be tall. We pay taller people more than we pay smaller people. We vote for taller people for elected office when we compare their height with other people. We tend to think that taller people have higher IQs because they're higher up or something. We don't know why, but scientists have proven over and over that people ascribe extra intelligence to taller people. I believe that we deserve that extra intelligence, but science, disagrees with me. So it's good to be tall, but I've flown about 200,000 miles this year, and there's one place that is not good to be tall, and that's the airplane. When I go to get on the airplane, it kind of goes like this, and the flight attendant says, "Sir, you need to watch your head," which is hard to do if you've ever tried. And I get on the airplane like this, and I don't get to stand up any more than that after I get on, and my backpack's sort of dragging on the ceiling as I get to my seat. But I get an exit row seat, or maybe I get a bulkhead seat. I can find a seat with some extra legroom, but sooner or later I have to go to the bathroom. And if you don't fit in the middle of the plane, the highest point of the plane, the pinnacle of the plane, you certainly don't fit on the side of the plane. Some people think I exaggerate this next part, so I took the liberty of an airplane bathroom selfie. So as you can see in that picture, my left shoulder is on the ceiling of the airplane bathroom. It's on the ceiling of the airplane bathroom. And so I get in the airplane bathroom and I close the door behind me because I can't turn around and do it. And I need to go to the bathroom, but I'm here and the toilet's over there. I have things that need to go in the toilet. And so I try to move closer, but the ceiling goes like this. So as I try to move closer, it just pushes my face closer and closer. So I realized that wasn't working, and I designed something I call the Limbo yoga approach. What you do is you just embrace the side of the plane. You just go with it. You don't fight it. So you just form your body. Just match the shape of the side of the plane as you move the lower body in and rotate, right? Now the problem is there's not a lot of visual information now. What's about to happen? So I was looking in the mirror. I was trying to triangulate maybe and see if I could get a visual, right? And as I did that, I realized, wait a second, there is a sink right there. That's a whole lot higher and a whole lot closer. That seems custom designed for what needs to happen here. So the moral of that story is really simple. I don't get to accept the advantages of my height without also accepting what? The disadvantage of my height. They're connected. Strength and weakness are connected. Advantage and disadvantage are connected. And too often we're busy seeing the disadvantage and we miss the advantages. We're too busy seeing the weaknesses and we miss the strengths. Peter Drucker said it this way. He said, strong people always have strong weaknesses too. Where there are peaks, there are valleys. Strong people always have strong weaknesses too. Where there are peaks, there are valleys. And I think a good way to think about this is side effects. Every medicine has side effects. Even aspirin has a side effect of causing potentially internal bleeding if you take too many of them. And the only way to reduce the side effect of a medicine is to reduce the benefit of the medicine. When we're busy trying to fix people's weaknesses, we end up damaging their strengths. When we're busy trying to fill in the valleys, we end up tearing down the peaks in order to happen. We take away people's uniqueness and we turn it into normal, we turn it into average, we turn it into mediocrity. We strip people of their uniqueness because all we see is weakness. George Eliot said every limit is a beginning as well as an ending. And what does that mean? Well, let me show you the beginnings that come with a limit that we have. One of the limits that we have in the world is dyslexia. People with dyslexia struggle to read and write because they struggle with their letters and they mix up the words and they mix up the sentences, they mix up the paragraphs. And so they struggle to read and struggle to write. We've been taught that if you struggle in school, you'll struggle in life. Which is why they were surprised one time when they were doing a study in the United Kingdom on millionaires and discovered that 50% of the millionaires in their study had dyslexia, even though only 10% of people in the general population have dyslexia. They were doing a study of entrepreneurs in the United States and discovered that 33% of the entrepreneurs had dyslexia, even though only 10% of people in the general population had dyslexia. Ingvar Kamprad is the billionaire founder of IKEA. He has dyslexia. Richard Branson is the billionaire founder of the Virgin series of companies. He has dyslexia. And they actually asked him, how has dyslexia affected your success? And he didn't say, I overcame it to become successful. He said, strangely, I think my dyslexia has helped. What scientists are starting to realize is people with dyslexia don't have broken brains, they have different brains. And the same brain that causes them to struggle in school causes them to succeed in life at a higher level than most people ever would. Paul Orfalea got kicked out of 4 high schools because he was so dyslexic, so he went to work for family-owned businesses, and then he got fired by his own parents and brothers and sisters from 4 different family-owned businesses. So he started his own business called Kinko's, and a few years ago he sold it to FedEx for $2.4 billion. And he said this, he said, I think everyone should have dyslexia. He sees the strength in his apparent weakness so much that if you offered him a pill that would take away his dyslexia, he would refuse it. And I do believe he's currently working on designing a pill that will give you dyslexia. A few years ago, I ran a 65K race, and when I finished the 65K race, my brother told me, Dave, you are crazy and awesome. And I think in order to be awesome, we have to be willing to be seen as a little bit crazy. We have to be willing to be seen as freaks. Seneca said there's no great genius without a touch of madness. But we live in a world where if you demonstrate genius, people tend to miss it and only see the badness. But there's another important part of that story because I ran a 65K race and my brother told me I was awesome for being very, very, very active. But what's interesting is my whole life as a child, I was very, very, very active. What do they call that in school? They call it hyperactive, and they give you medicine to fix it. For my whole life, I was criticized and punished for the very thing that as an adult I was rewarded and praised for. When we're willing to turn up the volume on our uniqueness, when we're willing to see the upside of our weakness, it can totally transform the way we live our lives when we amplify the very things that people have been spending their lives trying to moderate in us. What makes us weird makes us wonderful. And what makes us weak also makes us strong. And sometimes that's about finding the right spot. Sometimes we feel like we're not working, but it's not that there's something wrong with us. There's something wrong with where we are, not who we are. So when I was a kid, I broke my arm in half. My left forearm broke in half and came up at a 90-degree angle to the rest of my arm. They took me to the hospital, and they fixed it the best they could. They put me in a cast for 3 months, and they sent me home. And I thought I was fine. Until 8 years later when I was in college, and I was trying to play the guitar, and my friend was trying to show me how to play the guitar, and I couldn't do it. And that's when we realized they put me back together wrong at the hospital. You should be able to turn your hand over flat like this, but I can't turn my hand over flat at all. And that's when I realized why I struggled at drive-through restaurants for so many years. Because in America, we drive on the left-hand side of the car, so this is our drive-through arm, and I would pay them just fine, but I couldn't get the change very well. And they're like, sir, just turn your hand over. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, but you gotta reach it out. And I'm like, got it. My sister-in-law said I should get a basket on a stick and just reach it in there. But a few years ago, I was in Tasmania with my wife, and I was driving a car for the first time in Australia, and the first place I drove to was McDonald's. Because now I'm on the right side of the car, and I paid with cash because I wanted to know what it was like to reach my hand out perfectly flat and accept that change and bring it back into the vehicle like everyone else has been doing. When I'm in Australia, I'm still disabled. My left arm still doesn't work. It's still damaged. The weakness hasn't disappeared, but it seems like it's disappeared because I haven't changed who I am. I've changed what I've changed. Where I am. Thorkild Sohn started a company in Denmark called Specialistern, and they do software testing. They need employees with hyperfocus who can do the same thing over and over again. And he hires people with autism on purpose because two of the symptoms they have is hyperfocus and doing the same thing over and over again. They don't change who the people with autism are, they change where they are, and their disability turns into a hyperability when they put them in the right spot. Michael Phelps is the most decorated Olympian of all time, but he has ADHD. But instead of giving him medicine to fix his hyperactivity, his mom got him involved in athletics and eventually swimming. And now we don't say he's hyperactive, we say he's dedicated, we say he's determined, we say he's disciplined. Too often we're busy trying to change who we are and who other people are when our job is to help them find the right spot to change where they are. The Leaning Tower of Pisa, in case you didn't notice, is leaning. It's broken. It's been broken since 1173. In the 1930s, Mussolini decided that this was a bad thing, that this made Italians look like stupid people who couldn't build stuff. And so he ordered the government engineers to straighten up the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And they tried, and they failed. And that was a very lucky thing for the city of Pisa because millions of people have traveled millions of miles and spent millions of dollars to see a tower that leans. And so the people around the tower now say this: because of its inclination, the tower has become the object of very special attention. And the people around the tower now say it's important to keep the current tilt due to the vital role that this element played in promoting the tourism industry of Pisa. The uniqueness, what seems like the weakness of the tower is also its uniqueness. It's what makes it the object of very special attention. I think our job in this world is to help people preserve the inclination, to preserve the tilt. So the next time you're tempted to hide what's different about you, remember that what makes us weird also makes us wonderful, and what makes us weak also makes us strong. The next time you're tempted to criticize someone who's different, remember that what makes us weird makes us wonderful, and what makes us weak also makes us strong. Heroes are freaks. Heroes stick out when everyone else fits in. Heroes see strength where everyone else sees weakness. Thank you very much.
The Hero Roundtables are the global events that ask the question, what is a hero? You've just seen one hero talk. To find more and join the conversation, visit our website or social media.